Hi there. In this video, we'll be covering how to self-publish a book. The process isn't actually as hard as it might appear, but following the steps in this video can help you publish the highest quality book. By the end of this video, you will learn how to make your book as strong as possible, the path to publication, and some resources that can help you on your way. And stay tuned until the end of the video for a resource I really think you're going to enjoy. Let's dive in. You can publish a book about just about anything, which is a great thing and it's also a challenge. Because there's so many books being published today, it really forces you to dig deep internally and figure out what your most important story is. What's the story that you're yearning to tell? What's a story that's inside of you that you need to bring to the world that can really help people? Ultimately, figuring out your story is going to help your book stand out, and it's going to ensure that your book finds an audience. So often people will publish a book that feels like every other book that's been written. It feels redundant, and because of that, it doesn't break through. It doesn't find a deeper audience. It doesn't find a deeper connection. And all that effort and struggle, I'm not going to say it wasn't worth it, but it didn't result in the outcome that the author wanted. When somebody publishes a book, they have multiple different options on the path to choose. Self-publishing is the easiest one for most people. When you think of publishing a book, you often think of the traditional publishing process of lining up a literary agent and a publisher. But more and more people are actually turning to self-publishing, which means that the authors have control over the process. The authors are the one guiding the process. The expenses for bringing the book forward are paid out of pocket, but then after the book is published, there's no one else that you owe money to. The author then takes on all of the money that comes from book sales. All the royalties go to the author directly. And that's not the same as the traditional publishing process where a publisher will take on some of the money, a literary agent will take some of the money, and the author is left with a smaller piece of the pie at the end. Self-publishing a book and traditionally publishing a book actually follow the same steps. Even though the steps are a little bit different, they're all the same processes. Editing, design work, promotion, all of these things happen either way. With self-publishing, once you finish your draft, the first step is really a content or developmental edit. This is the 30,000-foot view of the book. This is understanding how the story works, understanding if the flow makes sense, understanding if the stories all connect together. You're looking at the book from this wider view to see what works and what doesn't. And each step in the editing process gets more and more granular. You go from content or developmental editing to copy editing to proofreading. And once you've gone through these steps and you've worked with editors who then will send back feedback and edits, I'm going to work through those edits and make the book as strong as possible, make the manuscript as strong as possible. Then you can move forward to the layout process. This is where the book is actually laid out. This is where some of the magic really comes to happen, because this isn't just a collection of words anymore. This is actually a layout. This is what a book looks like. It's really interesting when you get to the layout process. This is an interesting step. There are apps and programs you can use to lay a book out on your own, or you can also work with somebody who does this professionally. Working with a book designer is an important step because books inherently are designed a little bit differently than other items, other things, other pieces of content. When you think about the way the pages are laid out, and you think about going from one chapter to the next, and if illustrations are used, there's all these little things that come into play. If you use photos, for example, they need to be potentially in grayscale or potentially in color, but there's elements and questions and challenges that you need to work through to figure out how to make the design as strong as possible. And ultimately, the designer should be using elements that feel natural and authentic to your book. This should be a unique experience for the reader, but it should feel different than other books. There should be design elements or flourishes that make your book stand out and make your book feel different. Design is an often overlooked process, especially when layout is concerned, but you shouldn't overlook it. Cover design is another thing that is super important. The cover is literally the first thing that most people are going to experience about your book, and a lot of times authors will cut corners or overlook the importance of that. They will just push forward and not really spend the time to work with somebody to come up with a top tier cover design. And because of that, everybody that comes to the book and is introduced to the book for the first time is getting the wrong introduction. They're missing out because they're seeing a cover that might not be reflective. They're seeing a cover that might not be as strong as it could be. When you work with a cover designer, often what they will do is talk to you about the book itself. What are the themes of the book? What are the messages? They're not going to sit there and read the entire book, but there could be elements of the book that shape the way that they approach the cover and design elements that they can bring in to make the story really stand out. The cover is really the representation of what this book is, and you want to send a theme and a message to the reader about what to expect. Is this a sad book? Is this a happy book? Is this a book about bettering yourself? You want to send a message from the cover that informs the reader of what's to come, because if you do that, you're going to make the right reader more likely to pick it up. So you definitely don't want to jump ahead without, really unlocking the power of your cover. Often when you work with the designer, they will give you sample covers to choose from, maybe 2 to 5, somewhere in that range. And then you can look to see what works, what doesn't work. Maybe this font is right. Maybe you want to use a different color on this. Maybe the picture should be different. Whatever the case may be, it's a wonderful process to be able to work through the cover together and figure out what is going to make the strongest impression on the reader. If you go to Google right now and just type in self-published book help, you're going to come across different companies and different people who say they can help you. And maybe they can, but maybe they can't. Maybe they're going to lock you into a month-to-month contract that waste a lot of money, and a lot of the money is going to end up going to advertising and other things that don't actually have anything to do with your book. Maybe they have promises that they really can't keep. I find that it's best to work with high-level professionals. I actually recently got approved to work with a site called Readsy as a ghostwriter on this platform. And Readsy.com, it's an awesome website. And they have so many different types of different professionals, book professionals, that can help you with your specific needs. Whether it's ghostwriters, whether it's editors, whether it's designers, whether it's promoters. All these different people go through the process of getting vetted and approved to be able to be on this platform. And it has a 3% approval rate. It has 97% rejection rate. It took me 5 years of ghostwriting to be able to get approved on this platform. And I assume that the other people on this platform, because I've worked with some of them, are of a really, really high quality. You want to make sure that the people you work with are really high quality, and a platform like Readsy offers transparency, and it offers some support, and it offers some accountability to make sure that you're getting high quality work in return. You want to make sure that you're pursuing legitimate options when you're self-publishing your book. You don't want to just go find the first person you come across on Google, even the first person you come across on YouTube. Even if you find me first, I want you to do your homework. I want you to find the best person for you to make sure that you're getting your money's worth, to make sure that you're getting exactly what you need, and that you're not paying for the owner of the company's tennis courts or advertising. One of the great things about self-publishing is the control you ultimately have over the entire process, including publishing. You get to choose where your book appears. You get to choose how your book is published, in what format it's published, and you have control over the entire thing. That's not always the case with traditional publishing, where a publisher is going to make those decisions. You get to choose if it's published for everybody. You get to choose if it's only a private book and only a few people are going to get a copy of it. You're in control, and that's one of the greatest things about self-publishing. I've worked with so many different CEOs and thought leaders who have self-published their books and found great success with it. So if it's an option that you're pursuing and considering, I think it's worth exploring further, because it could be so rewarding for you to work through this process and be in control the entire way. If you want to learn more about how to self-publish a book, you definitely want to watch the next episode. I'll link to it on the screen. It's called How to Write a Book and Get It Published. In that video, I cover a lot of my writing tips. I cover the book foundation work that I typically work on at the beginning of a project, and to make sure that the book aligns with your purpose. Remember, a good book can change your life. I'm Dan Good. Thanks for watching.